Well, it's been a bugaboo of mine for as long as I can remember. News reports that use dubious statistics to bolster a story on anything from domestic violence to campus rape to drunken driving. Not that these issues aren't important and prevalent, but often the numbers just don't add up. The latest flap over fishy statistics began with a report on NBC's nightly news in January.
According to the FBI's latest study, more than 58,000 kids were abducted by non-relatives in 1 year.
But a doubtful viewer contacted the Washington Post's fact checker, which concluded the data is both old and based on estimates, not actual reports. And that's a problem with a lot of statistics, like campus rape.
According to the most recent statistics, 1 in 5 college women will be the victim of rape or attempted rape.
Those numbers have been widely reported and repeated by President Obama. But according to Fact Checker, the data is based on just one survey from 2007 and included just 2 universities. Further parsing of the study shows the numbers to be significantly lower. The military has been similarly tainted.
The Pentagon's estimate of the real number of what is notoriously an underreported crime goes much higher, 26,000.
No one is disputing that rape in the military or on campus is a real problem, or that there are many cases of child abductions not involving relatives. But what Fact Checker has revealed, and what earned the Denver Post a Pulitzer in 1986, is that many news organizations fall back on dubious statistics to bolster a story, or mindlessly report facts and figures from advocacy groups, like this on the Huffington Post website. Every minute, 20 people are victims of intimate partner violence. Maybe, but do that math and think about it. I once did do the math on one of those things, you know, how advocacy groups, often domestic violence, say every 16 seconds, you know, a woman is beaten to death or something. And I started doing the math and it was just like exponentially just impossible. It just couldn't be. This goes back to a discussion, Colleen, we've had many, many times here in the past, which I think is just lazy. You know, you grab those kinds of numbers from somebody's website, from some organization, well-intentioned. You know, they've got some statistic, they've got some data, they've crunched the numbers themselves, but that 58,200 children abducted a year, by the way, I mean, we'd all know somebody, we'd all know people. You know, it's like, it's not possible. It's just mathematically not correct, but yet there it is appearing on NBC News.
I mean, it speaks to a number of terrible habits that the media has. Number one is the irresistible impulse to try to scare the hell out
That's
of you
true.
as quickly as possible. You know, how your toilet can kill you. Watch at 11. And then it also speaks to our over-reliance on studies, too often without checking the veracity of the study, and then a few months later when the study is proven to be fake or inept, it doesn't get equal play. No wonder we need the existence of members of Congress to keep us from being the least trusted institution in the country. And this is the kind of thing, and it makes, as I said in the previous segment, it undermines the credibility of true facts when we bring them
rape
out.
victims, exactly.
You know, Glenn Kessler, who does the fact check column for the Washington Post, has really done a great job with some of these things. And I mean, I agree; these are real problems. I mean, I work at a university, and frankly, I think that the incidence of sexual assault on campus may be underreported, given how underreported the crime is in general. But what Kessler has shown is, you read his analysis, your jaw kind of hangs open at how thin these are.
That's the problem.
There's very little there. The fact is, we don't know. And Kessler's done a great job of showing we don't know, and we should say we don't know.
So here's the thing, aside from your point, which is a very good one about shortcutting that we take in the heat of doing a story. You think if you have a reliable institution, now I'm going to put advocacy groups aside just for the moment, just a reliable institution that is giving you the statistics, that you can go with that. And so I would argue that in a number of these situations, we have gone with the reliable institution. And maybe they should have gone back and we should have known we couldn't rely on them. Well, that puts you in a really uncomfortable position, because how do you report this if the reliable institution, the trustworthy institution, is giving you a fact that you cannot use? That's the first thing. The second thing with regard to sexual assaults, I would be interested in someone doing a study in which they go to the police departments and see how many times women came in, but they would not report it. Because that's where the real number is, okay? And I know that it's underreported. I know it's underreported. That might not be the statistics that everybody else is saying, but absolutely in the military and out here on the campus and everywhere else, it's underreported, and I don't want that to get lost. But we need some real numbers. So go to the police and say, how many times have they come in? And they refuse to report it. Right. So I bet you we have something to work with then.
But the problem is that we shorthand, and these guesstimates go from 3,000 a year to the case of the military, 26,000,
right.
Which is
that's part of the issue, is that these are. It's tougher when these are legitimate issues that are, it's no one's saying, as we've said around this table, that these are not real issues. Another example we could talk about would be military suicides. We've seen lots of stories about the large number of military suicides, and there are rates that 1 in X number of suicides are a military veteran. Well, if you look at the data as the Los Angeles Times did, you see that actually a lot of those are military veterans who are in their 70s or their 80s who are not committing suicide at substantially higher rates than other non-veterans of the similar age. The image is people who just got back from Iraq and Afghanistan, but it's not those folks who are making up the bulk of those numbers. It's also often very definitional. One of the issues with the sexual assault numbers is that the original study had a much larger, broader definition of what is sexual assault.
Exactly.
Whereas we saw in the clip, that was defined down to a rape or attempted rape, which is not what the definition of the original study was. Journalists really need to work harder to not just take the copy of the paragraph that someone else wrote and include that at the 15th paragraph of your story.
a lot of it has to do with basic math. I'll fully confess that I'm terrible, but I remember this is like 20 years ago when I was first doing a pilot for this program. One of my sections was going to be about these bogus numbers, and I started doing the math on this 1 in every 15 seconds. I said, wait a minute. I got somebody to help me with it. And so it was like, oh my God. The number was so large that it was just mathematically impossible, infeasible. But people don't really think about it that way. They're not doing the math.
And if the statistic of the number of abducted children turns out to be a quarter of what they reported, does that make it less of a story less interest to parents everywhere?
No,
I don't think so.
But maybe it's more alarming if you think it's 60,000, because don't forget, you always round it up.
Well, maybe we need to have a little more respect for our audiences and for ourselves and our own convictions, and be worried less about beating them over the head with the scary stick.
I agree.